Asbar for inviting me. I'm honored to be here to talk to you about some legal issues related to foreign investment. And I'd like to look at foreign investment in two ways, both the investment coming into the country, in some ways as Professor Jorkic was talking about, and also use of the sovereign wealth fund here to invest in foreign companies elsewhere as a way of obtaining access to knowledge as well. The key premise underlying my talk, though, is that contracts are critical if you want to work with the foreign technology community. Trust-based relationships, and even relationships, connections that come out of WASTA here, are an excellent way to do business. But the community that you'll be operating in the foreign jurisdictions are based more around contracts. So I don't want to say that contracts are a better way to do business, but I do want to say that they are a required way of doing business when you're working with foreign companies. There are some potential advantages, again, not evaluating one as better than the other, but some objectives and advantages you may not have thought about with contracts is that they can allow a faster deal to be done in the sense that you don't have to spend all the time building the trust relationship up front. You can then go directly into trying to get a deal. And the process of negotiating the contract and deal can often help you get the trust that you need to enter into that relationship. The contract can also help you understand what your deal is, what your agreement is. When we talk verbally, we think we understand what the other party is saying, but often we discover later on that we didn't really agree on what we were talking about. The process of negotiating and drafting that contract will help us think about what our deal actually is. It also helps because in the technology space, things are moving quickly. Startup companies come, startup companies go. To take the time to develop a long-term relationship may be harder than you may miss out on some of the innovation. So those are some of the premises. Now let me go through some slides here and talk about some key issues. Okay, so the kingdom wants to localize technology that's being developed elsewhere. So then how to do that? Through contract issues. Well, some of the key things then will be, as Professor Jorkic was talking about, when you're looking at working with large established corporations that will then run plants or other things here in the kingdom, having contractual clauses that require them to train Saudi nationals is key. Now you can run into some issues if it's a US-based company, they'll have some things called export control issues. That becomes a complicated subject, but you may hear that come up when they say, oh, we can't disclose all of our technology to you because of export control and issues like that. Again, we can't go into those details in the short time here now, but you should still nonetheless be pushing for specific contractual clauses to get as much training as possible for transfer of know-how and show-how and knowledge to Saudi nationals. That's the way you can localize the technology, okay? Now, as you know, many advanced economies, technology-based economies, they develop their technology in country. And so then trying to get ways to develop technology in country here, you're already doing through your great research institutions. You're pursuing ways of doing better technology transfer. But what you may also want to do is think about using the Sovereign Wealth Fund to then go and invest in companies in technology hotspots like the US, Europe, Asia, and do things where you invest not like a public investor in which you buy stocks in the open stock market, because that doesn't get you any special rights, it just gets you some economic benefits, hopefully. But instead you invest some of the wealth fund in the way that venture capitalists do in the US and other places. And what do I mean by that? Well, venture capitalists do private placement investments, which means that they negotiate the exact terms of their investment. And what's the upshot for technology here? They negotiate rights to access to view and know the technology of the SME, okay? Now you have to be careful about when you're investing, and do you have the rights to then use that technology? That can be difficult, but that may also lead you to then think about investing not just as a VC, but also in the way of forming a strategic partnership or a joint venture. And in those cases, then you're specifically setting it up between a foreign SME that may have some great technology and an affiliate that you've set up here in the kingdom that can then have contractual mechanisms to share codified knowledge, written down knowledge, know-how and show-how that's not codified, as well as then personnel. How will you then have rights to have technology staff coming from the foreign company and in here into the kingdom? Okay, now here's some recommendations to move towards the conclusion of my presentation. If you decide that what I'm saying about moving to a more contract-based innovation ecosystem is helpful, then the most important thing is to assure foreign companies and foreign investors that there is a good legal regime here for protecting and enforcing contracts. You see, again, what happens is the contract, for better or for worse, replaces to some degree, not entirely, but replaces to some degree the personal trust relationship. So you need then, if the contract is going to play that role, we have to know that it's enforceable. You also would benefit from ensuring that you have a system where companies' corporate forms can be formed quickly and efficiently. I've found in my travels around the world, looking at different developed innovation ecosystems and ones that are not as developed, that often that's the big distinguisher. In places like the US, you can form a corporation in one day. You file some paperwork, you have your corporation. The next day you can start securing investments, you can start hiring people, you can start doing all of that. So having, again, a fast ability to create entities, to then have a strong system of protection of contract and property is then key. Let me then conclude here. There's great potential, as you know. Vision 2030 is an excellent vision. I've read the planning documents for it that were sent to us. It is an excellent way to go. To achieve a lot of that vision, all of the right things seem to be happening. Developing science parks, having universities, getting better tech transfer, but in these other ways now about thinking about the nature of the way you will interact with technology entrepreneurs, technology researchers, foreign companies, contracts become the key to all of that. In a workshop that Taj and I did yesterday, we delved into how to do some of those contracts. There is more know-how that we can share with you over time later about how to do those contracts, should that choose to be interesting. Thank you for your time.